Hey guys, I'm Mark,
I'm Alen.
and welcome to another episode of The Next Man Up. Hey buddy,
What's up?
good to see you again.
Yeah, man.
Back for another round.
I don't even know what round number this is.
That's all right, man. It's a good conversation
Yeah.
we're having, and
We're here.
hopefully good engagement, and,
Yeah,
and we're
man.
challenging people with some things to think about, some new ideas,
Hopefully.
some different perspectives. That's the goal, right? That's
Yes.
really what we're trying to do, is just cultivate a conversation here.
If you have been listening, let us know. So we hear like some feedback from you. If you are, getting your brain electrified
Yeah.
by what we're saying or stuff. I know mine has been. Every time we sat down, I'm like, I walk away just feeling like, wow, I just learned something, or man, I can really put that to use. So this is good. This is
Yeah,
good.
that's an excellent point. We have the outro at the back with ways to contact us. But if you want to give us some feedback, ask questions, suggestions, whatever, you can email us at feedback@thenextmanup.com. You can also leave a comment on a podcast page or on iTunes. But if you want to give us some feedback, audience reaction is great. We'd love to know what kind of engagement or questions or ideas this conversation is producing in you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So what are we gonna talk about today?
Well, like our last segment, we talked about your ceremony you had for Jacob, and we were talking about just these different other men who had come along side of you and Jacob in the ceremony, and how they spoke into Jacob's life, and it just this idea of community, like not doing this alone.
Yeah.
Just kind of started coming up, and so I think we should talk about that. Like, how does one even go about that? Especially in our society, in our culture today, we are so siloed.
Yeah.
How do you do things? Well, let's whittle it down. How do we help our boys become men within community? Like, how do we do that? What are some tips or something? So that would be this segment. I know that's pretty
No,
broad, but
that's
yeah.
good, because we've been focusing really up to this point on the father's responsibility, and it's a big responsibility. You know this as well as I do, that fathers have a significant influence, whether they're present or not.
Yep.
It's a significant influence. But fathers don't have to do it alone. And I think that's kind of what you're suggesting with this topic here, that there are ways to lean into the community of men around your boy, and draw them in, invite them to participate. And what that might look like is probably what we're going to tee up here.
Yeah. It's funny. I was thinking. So I've had the honor of officiating several weddings, and also being, it's always an honor when you're invited to someone's wedding. I just think that's just huge when a
Special
couple is
day,
saying,
special ceremony.
like, hey, we want to invite you into what's happening. There was a couple of weddings that I attended, and something really sweet happened where the officiator or the couple that was getting married, they would turn to the audience or to family and friends that are in the seats or around, and they would say something like, you're not only a witness, but you have a responsibility in this couple's marriage, to encourage them and to hold them up and to hold them accountable to what they've said they were going to do today, this commitment that they're making. And it's like, I was sitting in the seats like, oh, whoa, wait a minute.
Wait, I have responsibility here?
I have a responsibility?
I just came for the cake.
Exactly. But what an honor, what a feeling. And I just think about this raising of our boys to men. Like when my boy stands and I say to him, you are a man now, like the company that's around, the responsibility that they would take on, but the honor that they might feel as well, in like looking at my son and going, wow, I had a part in you becoming a man.
Yeah.
Like that's huge. You know, that's pretty big. And so I don't know exactly what that kind of looks like, and whatnot. But I know there's people definitely that we could pull in to raise our boys.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But you know, who are some of those people that we can kind of point to and say, hey, can you come help step into my boy's life to raise him into becoming a man?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And even before you get to that question, it's like I recognize that I want to invite others to be a part of this, you know? And you know, there's a part of me that will admit that I like to control things, and when others are involved, you can't control it as much,
that,
right?
Yeah,
so
yeah. It's like, it's my boy.
So like, there could be all kinds of feelings, whether it's jealousy or I wouldn't do it that way, or this like you said, this is my boy. You know, it's probably helpful to just acknowledge that some of our listeners might even be experiencing that feeling, thinking about you know, letting somebody else have some influence.
Because not everyone believes like you. Not everyone, you know, walks out life like you or thinks like you. But there's so much to learn, though.
There is.
You know, there's so much to learn from those around us. And so, you know, I'm gonna be honest. There's been a couple of times where I've just been some men who've come across in my son's life, and I'm like, there is no way I'm gonna let you say a word into my son's ear. Like I don't agree with anything that you stand for. But like, there's times where I've had to back off and go, wait a minute, no, this is an opportunity for my son to learn something from another man.
Yeah.
That would be very beneficiary to his to his growing, you know. And so I've had to let loose of control.
Well, and even in those situations, we'll come back to your question, but even in those situations, there's opportunity for teaching and learning.
Yeah.
You know, and not to disparage other people, but if you see a man in your son's life who is not exhibiting the qualities that you're trying to raise up, it's not just discount him. It's, son, let's talk about the differences between what we're trying to instill in you and manhood and what it looks like over there, you know. And we're not hopping in the Greyhound and driving over this guy honking the horn, but it's a contrast.
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, and what I'm thinking about right now is not just face-to-face relationships, but it's also in media and stuff that's not like right there, like, you know, actually with you, physical and present. Like one easy one for me is in a regards of music. Like I love music. I love listening to different kinds. Country I'm not so hip to, but like you can catch me listening to classical. You might catch me listening to heavy metal. You might catch me listening to hip hop, some funk, some jazz. Like I just love it. And my son, he loves music as well. You know, and there's been some rap artists that he's, you know, let me listen to. I go, hey, what are you listening to? And he lets me listen, and I go, oh my gosh, like what is wrong?
Oh no!
Like I mean, and not just from the words, but to the style of the way the music is arranged, to what was used to create sounds. It's like, oh no, like no. And then like we get to the words, and I'm going, wow, like if we live as this person says to live, I think the world would blow up. Like, you know. And so, but it's given me opportunities to sit down though and to go back over like, okay, so tell me what you heard in this song. Really? All right, cool. Well, here's what I heard this person talk about. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean for you?
Right.
Well, here's what it means for me. And this is, if I were to take in this advice, or I would take in this life that this person is saying, here's what I think would happen. What do you think about that? And this conversation begins and it builds. And you're right, it's opportunity to learn. So, you know, there's a sense of like, you know, oh, control. don't let anybody else like near my boy. But I think that we end up like losing, and we actually help our sons to lose when we do that. Because even if a person is not speaking correctly into your son's life, you have an opportunity to go back over and to like teach him a way that you feel he needs to be taught, or to help him open up his eyes and ears and his heart to learn something that he can learn on his own.
Right.
Like, you just give him the tools, and he might learn something that you never even thought he was able to learn right then and there through a conversation that you're having and such. And so
the theme is relationship and conversation, regardless of the scenario, the circumstance. The reality is our children are going to be influenced by lots of different people. It's just a fact. And as much as I would like to create a bubble and a controlled environment sometimes.
Feed them cookies through like a little keyhole.
Right. It doesn't help them in the end. It just makes me feel like I've got more influence and control, which isn't really quite right. Because the reality is, whether it's any kind of media, whether it's their schoolmates, their teachers, there are people in their life, whether it's face-to-face or not, that are going to have significant influence over them. And part of what we are developing in our sons is the ability to distinguish between good influence, beneficial influence, worthy of taking in and learning positive, or not, and helping them to distinguish between the two. It's a huge gift.
Yeah, very big gift, but man, it's attainable.
It is attainable.
It is, you know what I mean? It's not, and I think that's the other side. I think that we fear that our sons will like fail, basically, in this idea of becoming a man.
And they will.
Because
like, we did.
Yeah, right? It's like, you know what? Like, you might as well just take that fear and make it a party, because we all fail. You know what I mean? It's like, even today, like, I'm thinking, like, in the next 10, 20 years, how many times I'm going to fail? But the beauty is to be able to, like, look back on your failures and to learn.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I don't want to take that opportunity from my son for the ability to learn from his failures and shortcomings. Which will help set him up for more success in his life. And so
you'd asked a few minutes ago about how do we identify these people, or who are they in our lives. A couple of thoughts come to mind. When I started the kickoff event, I had a couple other dads that were my friends who also had sons that were the same age as Jacob, and it was a natural fit. The kickoff event for us was something that all six of us were excited about.
Cool.
And so it was just a natural fit. And so in looking around at my friends, and looking around at my son's friends, there was an opportunity there to invite those men and those boys to participate in what we were doing. So that's one area that I can see people can tap into. Now, it requires, somebody's got to take the lead. It requires some intention and some purposefulness. But there's that component, where you just say, let's do this together and let's journey together and see where this goes. There's another component where you just kind of survey the lives of those around your boy already. I'm thinking probably the same things you're thinking: teachers, coaches, spiritual influences, family. For my boys, my brother has been a huge influence, huge. Now, they don't have children, so they've really poured into my kids, their niece and nephews, and yet he has been with me from the beginning. Supporting what I'm doing, helping my kids. Now, sometimes the guy drives me nuts because he's different than I am. He says things different. He's a little bit of that uncontrolled, that wild card, and that's where I feel like I cringe. But I trust his heart.
Sure.
And he is able to reach my boys in a way that I'm not, and they are better off for it.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's something that we have to understand. Like, I travel and I talk for different youth programs, do youth camps and schools and stuff, and it's like, oh man, you're able to reach every kid. Like, oh, like that's a lie. No, it's not.
It's a myth.
It's a myth. I don't reach every student, or every young person that is in front of me. And here's another truth. There are times where I'm not the one to reach my kids.
Yeah.
I will always be their dad, always be their father, their parent, one of their parents, but I will not always be the one to be able to convey in the right way for them to hear at the right time.
Yeah.
And there's other people for that. And as we're talking about sons, growing up and becoming men, there's men who are able to say things into their lives that I just, like for me, my son, there's men who have said things to my son that I've probably said 1,000,000 times, but because this person said it in a certain way, through a certain avenue, it hit him at the right time. And it's like, light bulb goes out, it goes on in the head. And I'm going, I've been talking to you about this for the last decade.
Why didn't you hear me all those times?
Oh my gosh. But you know what? Even though you say it and you banged your head up against the wall trying to get it through to his head, you weren't the person.
That's right.
And it's okay.
That's right.
We have to be okay with that. We have to be okay with us not having the right thing to say all the time, or being able to reach our son all the time.
So I'm going to push on this just a little bit. I know what you're saying. I'm going to clarify it a little bit because I want listeners to understand what we're saying versus what maybe clearly from what we're not saying.
Yeah.
So what we are saying is that fathers have a significant influence and responsibility.
Huge.
And you cannot expect your son to grow up into the man that you want him to be if you just let everybody else speak into his life.
Yes.
You can't. He will learn from you by your actions. And if your actions are absent and not active, he will learn that despite whatever else, whatever other voices are in his life. I know that's not what you're saying.
No.
What you're saying is, in addition to us owning that responsibility as fathers, there are opportunities for other men to come alongside our boys and just reinforce different words, different experience, different expression, but reinforce the same things that we've been saying in such a way that the boys get it.
Yes. And then that's the, that's the magic.
That's the magic.
That is. That's the best way I can put it.
Yeah.
That's the magic. And it's I've watched it happen with me with someone else's kid, and and it's an honor too, because when another dad says, "Wow, just thanks for speaking into my kid's life," or for doing this for my kid. It's an honor. It's not like I'm taking place of dad or anything like that. But I'm like you said, I'm reinforcing, and so coming alongside what the father's been trying to do with his son or daughter at the time, like it's cool and honor to be doing that. But I've had it happen with me, where I've been just trying to guide my son a certain way, and another male figure who I trust in his life comes along and just goes, "Hey, let me talk to him." And says a couple of words, and all of a sudden my son's like, "Okay, I'm ready now." It's like,
yes,
what Houdini trick did you just pull?
Right.
It's like, thank you, God bless you.
Right.
Like we need that. We need each other in our kids' lives. Like we need that. We can't do it alone. I honestly believe that you are not meant to do life alone.
Yeah.
And guess what? That includes parenting.
Yeah.
That includes being a father to a son. That includes raising your son to become a man. We can't do it alone. We need other people.
This statement that I'm going to make sometimes comes with some political baggage and charge to it. But similar to what you just said, it takes a village.
It does.
It really does. I believe the older I get, the more I see that, and the more I really want to lean into that and embrace that.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. Wow.
I'm thinking about a story that I heard not too long ago. You know, we're talking about this idea of drawing others in or letting others in, inviting them to speak into the life of your son. I heard a guy who's coaching a baseball team talk about some of the things that they're doing on the team, and it was crazy. So picture a typical travel club level baseball team. There's a lot of practice, there's a lot of time, there's a lot of investment. But early on, the coaches got together and said, this team is going to be more than just about baseball. We're going to use this platform that we have for character development. Okay. And so as the team started to fold, they began to cast this vision for, we want baseball and character development. And we're going to carve out some time to teach you how to be, really what they were teaching is leadership principles. Although these boys may not realize it, they're teaching them leadership principles. And they're essentially experimenting with you, if you will, on 10, 12-year-old boys. And the stories that this coach was telling me from their experience is phenomenal. Like parents coming up to him after a handful of practices saying, what are you teaching my boy? Because I see it. Yeah. He's different. Or the parents are at the practice and they're listening in and they're like, man, I could use some of that in my own life. And it's just the impact that they're having goes way beyond the baseball skills and the competition and all of that. It's like, here's life. And we're helping you to be able to navigate life by developing some of these character qualities. You know, that is an example of other people being able to speak into your child's life and round out, reinforce, say in a different way, maybe connect in a different way than what you can as a parent. And I think what we're saying here is to be actively looking for those types of opportunities.
Yeah. Because they're there. And, you know, I think it's really easy for, you know, just life gets busy. You're not, you know, it's hard to pay attention to everything. You don't know everyone who's connected to your family and such. But man, if we just slow down, we actually see that there's actually opportunities, like you were saying, for other people to speak into our sons' lives because they're already there.
Yeah.
They're there in honestly, most of the times it's in a prominent position where your child has to like be face to face with them.
Right.
You know, like school.
Right,
or,
like a teacher.
A teacher, or like, you know, I think of like our church that we attend. I can think of 3 guys right now who I know be in some way, whether they, you know, teach a basketball, coach a basketball team, or they're or part of a coach of a basketball team, or they're like, you know, youth pastor, or you've been a mentor in some way to my son. Like there's people out there that are on the outskirts or in the shadows, as I would say, that I think we could pull out and begin to work with them to really invest in our sons, you know, and it would be a really sweet thing for us to do.
I've made it all the way through a process with my oldest, and I'm toward the back end of the process with my middle son. But just listening to this conversation, participating in this conversation, it makes me realize that I could have been more intentional about letting other men that are active in my boy's life, letting them know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, and the role that they can play, like, you know, my middle son, just because of your dance connections. And I'm thinking, how much more influential would it be if I were to come to you as a dad and say, hey, Alen, my son really looks up to you. And here are some of the things that I am doing in his life that you may not know about it. And boy, what an impact that you can make on him as you live out these things too.
Man, and awesome.
It could be as simple as that.
Energized from hearing that. I'm like, oh yeah, like how can I do that?
Right. You know, but if I'm just thinking, I like to ask this question in this way, like, what would it have been like? So, Mark, what would it have been like had you gone to people like Alen or others in Jacob's life earlier in the process and said, this is what I'm doing. I want you to be aware because you are an influence in that son's life, in my boy's life, that kid's life. And you can help me along the way, whether you do anything different or not, just to know, be aware of the positive influence that you can have on this child's life.
Yeah, that's huge, man. Like, and you know, for those who are listening, like if you're like at the tail end of, you know, son in your family's life, like your home, like, you know, he's reaching 18, 19, like he's already gone off to college, like, you know, he's 25 years old or whatever. Don't take, you know, these remarks as like, oh man, I suck. You know, like, no, this is good because, like, you know, if our eyes get open, like I'm thinking about my son, you know, he's 16 years old and here I am rattling off people. I'm going, when have I ever sat down with them? And it's like, here's what I'm doing. But you know what? Like, as it sparks in my brain, I'm going, oh man, dude, this is great because now I can probably go talk to them and at least make them aware,
right?
Like, you know,
right.
and let them hear what's going on, and that just reinforces, that just builds up more, that just gets everybody more on the same page for the goal that we're trying to do.
Yeah,
you know, and that's huge.
Those same light bulbs are going off for me. You know, it is. If I could do it different, this is what I would have incorporated. Yeah. I would have gone to the Alans of the world of my boys and said, this is what I'm about.
Yeah.
And just realize that you play a significant role. Whether you realize it or not, now you do. You play a significant role. Thanks for your help. Keep leaning into this kid because he's going to be better off for it.
Yeah, and the honor. And I always go back, like, dude, the honor that you are giving someone.
Yeah.
That's huge, man.
It is.
That's pretty big.
I would enjoy the opportunity to do that for somebody else's child.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
That's
it would be a very special honor. I agree.
Yeah, community people, we need it.
Yeah.
We need it. Well, Mark, thank you so much again, man. I love this.
Yeah,
dude.
Good conversation. You know, coming away with ideas, you know, things that we can still do. We have time with our others that we've said this on a couple of occasions. We don't have it all figured out. But the conversation that we're engaged in, it's sparking ideas for us. Listeners, I hope it's sparking ideas for you too as well.
Yeah, and talk about it. If you got an idea, talk about it and share it. Well, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Mark, it's been awesome, man.
Adios.
All right.
Hey, listeners, thanks for journeying with us on this Next Man Up podcast. You know, we would love to hear from you. Maybe you have a question or an idea, perhaps a topic for us to consider. If that's you and you want to reach out to us, you can get us at feedback@thenextmanup.com. That's feedback@thenextmanup.com. Again, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we'll see you later.